Hi, John. Welcome back to the Aerobic Edge podcast.
Thanks very much for having me on, Joosty.
You're welcome. Looking forward to having another great conversation about training for marathons. In our previous conversation, we talked about the foundation phase, the pre-super base, and the super base. And just in one sentence, what were those three phases? What do they achieve for a runner?
So the foundation phase is for somebody who's been injured or a beginner runner. They need to build up to 65 minutes for their easy runs, 90 minutes for their long run. That's the foundation phase. The pre-super base is again geared towards a beginner runner. It's the next phase for them, or somebody who's coming back from injury, or somebody who's on the slower end of the spectrum in terms of running. So they might be a 2-hour half marathon or a 150 half marathon, and they are hip flexor dominant 99% of the time. And what we try to do is change them from hip flexor dominant to get the glutes more involved in the running, improve their running economy, running efficiency and speed. And that takes about 7 weeks, that block does. And then the super base is the best kept secret in the running world, is where we start to put the fitness on people. Now, this is the entry point for the intermediate runner. So somebody who's running, say, 3:30 for a marathon, 3:30 probably, or the equivalent of a half, they can come straight in at this point. But it's also how the beginner runner progresses. They go from foundation to pre-super base and into the super base. The super base generally lasts about 14 weeks and people make huge gains in this phase. Yeah. So we're talking on a 40, 50, 60 minute endurance spine run, they probably improve by about 30 seconds per mile, or roughly about 20 seconds per kilometer. And that then goes across into their fitness. They come out of it in very good 10K and half marathon shape.
Yeah, exactly. So now we've built someone up to have a great base, and now we're going to add some more speed work in the bridge training. So we worked on form before speed, and now they're up to that level. And now we're going to work towards a specific race basis or more speed work.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is by going down this route with a beginner runner or somebody who's not been running very long or has been out for a long time as well, it means you're reducing the risk of them getting injured. What a lot of coaches do, they would make the mistake of giving people speed work and they're just shuffling faster and put loads of stress through the Achilles and the calf muscles, the gastroc and soleus, and then they're hip flexor dominant and they get injured as well. So this is a safe way to transition people, and then they make that improvement as they go along.
Yeah, and runners get to a point that they just can't shuffle any faster, so they start to break down. So becoming glute dominant is a big step for a lot of runners.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of success with this. I've had many people going from like 4 hours 15, 4 hours to sub 3 in 12 months to 18 months, going through this process that we're talking about now. In fact, in London just recently there, I had two women, one ran a 35-minute PB and one ran a 47-minute PB, and they've gone through that process. They're not even all the way through it yet. In fact, one of them's only been with me for 3 months, the other 5 months. And that's how much they've improved already.
Yeah, huge PBs. Yeah. Everyone would like to sign up for some form of PB of that.
Well, I mean, the way I coach and what I do is what you do. We do the same thing as well, So, and it's, and it gets results. It works.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it works 95% of the time. 5% where it doesn't work is normally a case of where people are not following the training properly. People might get sick. Things happen in their lives as well. After that, but generally, it works very, very well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, great. So now we're up to speed from our previous conversation. Let's talk about bridge training. What does bridge training add to the super base? What are the differences?
Yeah, whereas like the pre-super base is kind of a template to get them glute dominant, and then the super base is to give them that aerobic capacity and musculoskeletal strength, so they don't break down and get injured, but it adds on fitness. In the bridge training now, this is the bit before the marathon. So what we're trying to do now is get them fitter again after the super base. So they'll probably run a half marathon after the super base or a 10K. We've got a benchmark of where they are. And now what we're going to try to do is get their half marathon time quicker before they go into the marathon block of training. So bridge training, in a nutshell, we carry on doing the endurance spine runs from the super base, the 40, 50, 60s, but we now intersperse them with structural runs, which I'll come back to and explain. So rather than working in 3-week kind of microcycles with the 40, 50, 60 in the super base and coming back round and getting quicker, now we work in 5. And in the midweek, we cover everything from 5K, 5 mile 10K, 10-mile half marathon training, and sometimes even marathon pace work, but not for too long. So there's a whole range of work in there. But the big difference, couple of big differences are that in bridge training, the recoveries are a lot shorter. So in the super base, the recoveries are very generous on purpose so that people can run pretty quickly, but safely, so that they can recover
Yeah.
in time so their form remains good as well. Whereas now they're ready to have a shorter recoveries. And also we mix the sessions up. So a lot, like for example, in my library, I have 128 workouts for bridge training, and I pluck them out individually for what the person needs. Instead of doing, say, a 10K session, you might do something like 10-8-6-4-2, a cut down. So you do the 10 minutes at half marathon effort, and you're working your way down towards 5K effort, and the recovery is only 2 minutes. Or might do a pyramid, which many people will be familiar with: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or 2, 4, 6, 8, 8, 6, 4, 2. And again, that's just off 2 minutes in the recovery. So then that's like an easy run. They're quite tough sessions as well. And then another thing that we might do is a broken tempo. So you could have a session like 10 minutes at threshold, or roughly around the pace that somebody could hold for an hour, 3 minutes easy, 10 times 1 minute at 5K effort off a 1 minute jog recovery, 3 minutes easy, and then a 10-minute tempo at threshold, or roughly the pace that somebody can hold for an hour. And that's a very good session as well, because what you're doing there is, when you're doing the tempo part and then going into the 5K efforts, when you do the 5K efforts, the lactate levels go up, and then the body has to pick up the lactate, shuttle it, and use it as fuel. So you're teaching the body to use the lactate more efficiently as fuel. And then that carries across then into the other tempo, the last tempo. And what normally happens is people start to have to work a bit in the final 5 minutes or so of that tempo. And that's a stimulus we're after. So
exactly.
And you can progress that. There's many other sessions that you can do that are very similar to that. And it depends on the level of the runner as well, what you would give them. So I have another session called lactate grenades, where again, this has a similar purpose of trying to pick up the lactate, shuttle it, and use it as fuel. So for an example where you would start somebody with that is 10 sets of 3 minutes at threshold to 10K pace in there, and then 1 minute recover. So they would do 3 minutes of that, 1 minute jog, 1 minute 5K effort, 3 minute jog or easy. And then as you go through that session towards the end, the purpose of it is that they start to struggle on probably the last rep, or maybe the 9th rep. So their body's working to shuttle the lactate around and use it as fuel. That's what we're after. And you can progress. There's lots of different ways that you can progress that out. But that would be more for an advanced runner rather than somebody who's 3:30 or 4 hours. You'd probably use that session more for somebody who's looking to get down to 2:30, somebody who's around 2:40 and faster for that.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and this is the thing, is where the art of the coaching comes in, is you've got all of these different workouts that you can use, but it's knowing when to use them and how to use them, what the purpose is, and who to give it to as well. Because as a coach, as you know, the main thing that we're trying to do is obviously keep people from getting injured. That's our number one responsibility. Keep them consistent and give them the right sort of stimulus and the right sort of work. And that's where the bridge comes in.
Yeah. And different athletes respond differently to the same training. So you have to know the athlete as well. What works with one doesn't necessarily has to work with a second one. And that's the beauty of the bridge training. It's so many different kinds of workouts. You can really fine tune what works for an athlete.
100%, yeah. And then when you're working week by week with them now, you can see, are they struggling a little bit with the paces on their endurance spine runs, which I'll come back to and explain that about the structural runs. And I haven't covered that yet. And then if is it a pace thing, is it an endurance thing? And then you can select, or is it a mix? That's where the coaching part comes in, the skill part and the experience as well as a coach. But for me, the endurance spine runs or the weekend run are the key indicator of how a person's progressing. So in the super base, what happens is they do the 40, 50, 60, as we said in part one. And then as they finish the 60, come back round, and then they're going to do the 40-minute tempo again. This time they're doing it 3 seconds per kilometer quicker, roughly speaking, or 5 seconds per mile quicker. And it still has the same effort. And that's how you can monitor the progress. And that's why and the reason they do that is because of the midweek workout. But now in the bridge training, what I do with this is they do a 40-minute endurance spine run. And just in case anybody hasn't listened to the first one, the 40-minute endurance spine run, it's a tempo at the pace, on the day, in the conditions, on the course, the way that you're feeling, that you could hold on that day for 90 minutes, roughly speaking. So we do that for 40. Then the next week, we do what I call a structural run. And that's 20-minute warm up. In the endurance spine run, it's a 30-minute easy, the 40-minute tempo, 30-minute easy. The structural run is 20-minute warm up, an 80-minute tempo, a 20-minute cool down. But that 80-minute tempo is 12 seconds per kilometer or 20 seconds per mile slower than the endurance spine run, which roughly equates for a lot of people to roughly around marathon pace. It's not a difficult session, but what it works in a couple of ways. So it's helping again with the musculoskeletal system because you're running at a tempo a bit longer, but it's a bit slower, so it's safe as well. And you're still getting lots of the benefits of mitochondrial biogenesis and all the other benefits that come, with the tempo runs as well. It also is a bit slower. I suppose it takes injury risk away because we're a little bit more intense now in the midweek sessions in the bridge training too. Then what we do is in the next week, then we do the 50-minute endurance spine at the same pace or effort as we did the 40-minute one. And that should feel pretty comfortable because you've just done an 80. So you've got that strength from there. And then the next week we do a 90-minute tempo with a 15-minute warm up and a 15-minute cool down at the same pace as the 81. And we come down and do the 60-minute endurance spine run. So that's 5 weeks. Now, what's happening in those 5 weeks as well is you've got all of these midweek sessions that are happening. So you've got 5 weeks of working on specific areas to get the person faster. Then when they come back round to the cycle again, they're able to speed up through each of the 40, the 80, the 50, the 90, and the 60. Excuse me.
And is that specifically for a marathon, or do you do this progression as well for half marathons, for example?
Everything. Even if people are training for 5K, they need to do those long runs as well. 5K, 10K, half marathon, 10 mile, whatever. I mean, I wouldn't use those runs in marathon training. So the workouts, the bridge type workouts, there are one or two of them that I do use in marathon training. But again, that's a little bit, when we talk about the marathon, then we can go into that. But there's lots of different sessions to do midweek and different ways to do the marathon too. But generally, what I find is a lot, because of the way the marathons are set up, they're normally set up in springtime and autumn, winter, sort of December. They look at Valencia, CIM in the US. So they're set around there. So in these kind of summer months, and I'm not talking about Australia because theirs is the opposite as well, but in the summer months, it's a good idea to race 5Ks and 10Ks to break up the training as well. So you don't want to be going all the way from sort of the end of April to October without racing. Now, I'm a big fan of not over racing as well. I'm racing with purpose, but it's a good idea in this window. This is a time to race in bridge training, but not too regularly. So you're looking at about every 6 to 8 weeks to pick a race. And the reason why this is important is again, so you can get some performance metrics to see how the training's going. The person can also get some more PBs or PRs too. So they're not reliant on just a marathon. You want to get them running PRs and everything, or PBs and everything. But another key thing for this is lowering the risk of somebody getting injured. So if you do a 6-week or 8-week block of training and then they taper down, they race a 10K and then they recover. So as they taper down, the adaptations from those 7 or 8 weeks of training come in behind that, and then they're able to race. And then if you recover after the 10K, because after a 10K, you need a week to recover. I don't mean a week off, but of easy running. And then when you come out of that recovery, the 10K session or the 10K race works like a super session, and their fitness is now a little bit more advanced than it was when they did the 10K session as well. But because you're tapering them in and recovering, it's a sort of subtle way of reducing the risk of them getting injured, because you're taking the load off for a little while there before going into the race and after the race as well. And it allows the body to refresh, reset before you move into the next block of training too.
Yeah. And how long is the bridge training for an athlete?
It can be anything from 1 week to mine's probably going to be a year when I get there. But it depends really. It's not like a set block. Per se. This is where it's really specific. And again, it's like the super base. The super base is like a set block, but you can modify the super base a lot as well and do different things with it depending on what the athlete needs. With the pre-super base, you can as well. So a good example of what I'm talking about there now is sometimes when people come to me, I know that they need to go onto the pre-super base because their hip flexor dominant, but they might have a marathon in 3 months. So what I'll do is I'll put them on pre-super base training for in the week time, where they'll do the hill blasts and the progressive strides. And then on the weekend, I need to get them structurally ready for the marathon. But I wouldn't give that kind of beginner runner or slower runner the same marathon work that I would give to somebody who's looking for a sub 3 or a sub 230 or a sub 220. These guys, it's more time. So they're building up, so structurally they're able to do the marathon, but in the meantime, they're learning to run properly. So that's how you can incorporate the pre-super base into the marathon. And then if you've got an intermediate runner and you've got them on the super base and they've got a marathon coming up, you can keep the super base work going through the marathon training too, because it's quite safe to do. It's not too aggressive. And that means that it's supporting the marathon training too. So you can use those
Yeah.
in there. And again, with the bridge work as well, there's certain bridge sessions that I would pop into the marathon block as well. A good session is like a threshold session, 12 times 3 minutes off a 35-second recovery. That sounds horrendous on paper, but if you pace it properly and put the effort right, it's a very, very good session. Now, for example, every time I ever did that, I only ever got to 8 because I'd run them too quickly and have to stop. But if you pace it right and get the effort right, it's a great session. And you can progress that then out to 15. So, and I've got a lot of people that do these sessions and it really gives them a nudge in their fitness without being too aggressive, as long as they get the pacing right with it. So they're 2 bridge sessions there. And then like in the super base, for example, we do the 8 times 5 minutes off 3 minutes. But in bridge training, you don't get 3 minutes, you only get 1 minute. So it's 8 times 5 minutes at probably threshold effort, or roughly the pace somebody can hold for an hour, depending on their ability, 10 mile, thing like that. And so I would use that session also in the marathon training because it's not too aggressive. I'd say probably about 90% of the people that I coach in the marathon training, I wouldn't give them anything faster than threshold in the midweek workout unless they needed it, if I felt they need it. So like, for example, I've got somebody at the moment that needs to have some 5K work because they're struggling with the marathon pace and the threshold type work's not helping that. So now I'm having to come down and in, and I've got them on hill blasts as well. So I've got them on hill blasts and some faster stuff to get this, to try to pull down this so they're more comfortable at the marathon pace. Again, and that's the sort of thing where the coaching comes in. It's not about templates and just cutting and pasting and things. You have to look at the athlete, get the feedback from the athlete as well, which is really, really important, as you know,
Yeah.
because, just giving somebody sessions isn't coaching. That's easy, as we know. It's the communication thing is really, really key. It's important because, you can look at splits, but you don't know how the person felt. You don't know if it was windy, if it was humid, if it was hot. So these are factors that you have to look at as well. But in the bridge, generally where it kind of tends to land is in the summer months in the US and in Europe. And then they're kind of faster sessions as well. They're not as long. So if it's hot and humid, they're more doable than big, long marathon type sessions as well.
Yeah. And how do you alternate between the quicker and the more lactate sessions? The 5K sessions and the half marathon pace sessions, are there fixed cycles?
Not really. I see what you mean. Yeah. So what I would generally do is if somebody's done something, say like if I give somebody, let's say pyramid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 this week, and that session is basically going to be sort of like the way I get them to do it is like 10K effort going up and 5K effort coming down. So if I gave them that, then maybe the following week, I'd probably give them a session that was more near in that threshold area, or a mixed session, something that's different. So it gets a different stimulus, because I think we discussed about the overload principle in the first episode. What we do today is affected in 10 days time. So that session there, you want to give a different stimulus the following week as well. So that you're just giving the body a little prod each time. And the important thing to, I suppose, to make sure here for coaches out there and for runners is when you're doing these type of sessions that, like we've mentioned already, the main thing is to reduce the risk of that person getting injured. And with these sessions being a bit quicker, you have to say to them, you want B type workouts. You don't want A workouts, A plus workouts. If people are banging out workouts and they're on the hands and the knees, they're getting injured, they're getting stale, they're getting burnt out. So these still have to be controlled. And you always, it's a cliche in running now and in coaching, is that whenever you finish a workout, you should always feel that you can do more. And that's definitely the case with the bridge workout. It's a bit harder, a bit more challenging, but it doesn't mean it needs to be eyeballs out.
Exactly. I usually say, if you finish all the reps and you think, oh, I could do another 2, then you're golden. That's exactly where you want to be.
That's it. And that's a B workout. If you finish all of the reps and you have to stop and you've got your hands on your knees and you're talking loose, you're puking up everywhere and things like that, then good. You don't want sessions like that.
No, exactly. And this structure works very well, because if you're just training 5K reps week in, week out, then you're going to lose some of your lactate work. Now we're balancing all kinds of workouts, and we're really giving the body something to adapt to, instead of just one
And another point here, and this is where a lot of people go wrong, is if they're trying to get quicker over the 5K, for most runners, they shouldn't really be doing 5K training, because the way that proper 5Ks training is designed is for people in their 20s who are at elite level or national standard or trying to get to that area, because the training is very intense. I used to race 5Ks and do the multi-pace training that Frank Hall sort of created, and it's intense training, and you don't want to be training in that area for long. So when you see like a lot of clubs in the UK and in Ireland, and then I suppose a lot of run groups in the US, they do 8x1,000, they do
Yeah.
yeah, and those types of sessions, they're very intense and they're tough on the musculoskeletal system. And what they're not realizing, that most people out there who are running are older and they're not elite athletes. And this is what causes people to get injured, and then they get caught in the cycle of mediocrity where they get injured, they come back and they go back into those sessions and round
Yeah,
again.
exactly. Those sessions and VO2 max sessions, you see
Yeah.
those a lot.
Yeah, no, like, in fairness, that's how I used to train years ago as well, but I very, very rarely give those type of sessions. I mean, I might give them with some of my sort of younger runners who are at a decent standard, but I wouldn't give it to, very, very rarely would I give something like, I do dish out 8x3 minutes sometimes if I think somebody needs it, but I progress them to get them there carefully. So I might give them in bridge training, for example, if somebody's training for a 10K, you need to give a good tickle to the 5K work. So I might in week 1 give them something like 20x1 minute at 5K effort off a 1 minute jog. And then in week 3, I would progress that to 12x2 minutes at 5K effort off a 2 minute easy. And then in week 5, I might give them 8x3 minutes, which is like in elite terms, that's kind of, or somebody who runs 15 minutes for 5K, that's like 8x1K, which is a classic 5K type session as well. That's not a VO2 max session either.
No.
That there, VO2 maxes tends for, I suppose, for most people to be more around like 2 mile, 3,000 meter area in and around there. And they're
Yeah,
really
exactly.
tough sessions.
Yeah.
Like that's more like 5x1,000 or 6x800. It's a classic Frank Hall session.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think we covered bridge training. Is there something we forgot, or do you want something to add about the bridge?
Yeah, I think it depends whether you're looking at it from the perspective if you're an athlete or if you're a coach. So as a coach, you've got lots of different workouts that you can use. And I suppose the main takeaway I would say is be careful with the sessions. Like if you think something might be a bit too aggressive, it normally is, and give a little bit more recovery, or give the instruction to dial the pace back a little bit or the effort back a little bit. As you said, rightly so as well, is always feel like you can do a little bit more at the end. I think that's a really key takeaway. And don't, in week 1, do a 5K session, week 2, 5K 3, 5K 4, 5K like that. You can do that sometimes, but most of the time I wouldn't be doing that. You want to mix it up a little bit and give a different product, different stimulus. And another thing as well with bridge training, if somebody is doing this in the summer and they're looking to do a few 5K races and 10K races, you still have to keep one eye on the endurance aspect. Now, I remember, this has been documented as well, speaking to Hugo van der Broek, a great Dutch runner, actually, 2:12 marathon runner, and his wife, I think it's Sylvia, if I remember correctly. Now it's a long time ago since I've spoken to Hugo. And he was telling me that when she was coached by Canova, that every other weekend he would give her a 25-kilometer run at 98% effort. And that's the thing where I got the idea about the endurance spine runs. How do you take that and give it to somebody who's trying to break 3 hours for a marathon, or somebody who's trying to improve? So you have to keep an eye on the endurance thing. It's not all just about reps if you're doing 5K and 10K. So you still need to keep that going. It's very, very important for 5K and for 10K too. It's just
Exactly.
it's just that midweek sessions can be a little bit different, a little bit shorter as well.
Yeah, and in bridge training, do athletes also see new PBs in their K times and what they're racing?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole purpose of it, is when you take them from the super base. So let's say somebody's finishing the super base, they haven't done a spring marathon, they finish the super base in May, and they might be doing, I don't know, let's say Malaga in November as it is now, or Valencia in December. You've got so many months there. So what you would do is try, ideally, if you're talking about the marathon, is to get them in. They might have just ran a half marathon. You want to try to get them faster over the half, but before they go into marathon training. And that happens because you're giving a different stimulus now to what you were in the super base. The recoveries are shorter. You're mixing up sessions. You're targeting different areas. You've got the structural runs in there as well. So it's completely different, and it's pinpointed each week on what they're going to be doing.
Exactly. Okay. Well, great. I think we finished the bridge training now. The only thing left is a marathon training, and we'll cover that in a part three of this podcast. So thank you very much, John. Thank you for your time. We discussed a lot about training. I hope athletes can learn something from this and reach out to you or to me to get started on this training. So
Yeah.
thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. And if people are listening to it and they've got questions, drop Joost a message, on Instagram or wherever he is, and ask him, because he knows his stuff. He knows what he's doing with it, and he'll be able to help you.
Well, you taught me, so I ought to be
Right.
perfect. Thank you very much, John. Yeah. Cheers. Bye bye.